the fight, yeah, bring on all the lightning. 'Cause I'm looking for a hero. Look inside the mirror, I find one. Oh, carry the hurt when it gets too hard.
Welcome to this episode of Inspired. I'm your host, Takia LaShawn, and joining me today is Donellia Chives, chameleon, peacock, unicorn, and mermaid. I love it. I love that.
The animal kingdom.
The animal kingdom. The animal kingdom, but just out of all of those things, such intricacy, such beauty, such uniqueness. And I love that about how you describe yourself. You're looking gorgeous today, Queen.
Thank you. And I'm going to say animal queendom.
Animal queendom. There you go. I love it. And we're talking in this series, we are talking about the hurt, the pain, the work, and the purpose. And we are just talking about what it takes as women, what we endure, and the things that we go through, and how we overcome. I mean, you have so many amazing titles. I think we as women, you know, we carry a lot, the burden of things. We hold that head high. We help fix each other's crowns.
Yes.
We wear those crowns well. But behind all of that, you never know what it takes to see. We only see what we see.
Exactly.
Unless we invite one another into our lives. And that is what we're doing here on this platform today, is we are inviting viewers, we are inviting the audience in to see what it takes to make this woman sitting before me curatress, creatress, all of the above, and Gourmet Lifestyle. Uja, my group, will get to that. But before we get to that, we want to talk about your story. And Queen, share whatever part of your story that you invite us into.
Thank you. And thank you so much for having this beautiful platform, Takia. You know, I absolutely adore you, love you, and admire you. And I just thank you for all that you do and having this beautiful platform.
Well, thank you. I'm honored to have you here.
Thank you.
So let's talk about one of the topics that stood out to me is, again, I tell you, I met you, we talked about this a while ago. I met you, I guess it's been about 8 years now.
Yep.
We're coming up on a decade.
We are coming up on a decade.
And when I first met you, one of the things that really stood out was just your spirit. I'm going to call it your spirit, just very bright. That's what enters the room when you come in. And you just have been consistent in that. You have a very humble and meek demeanor about you, and that does not negate the power and the presence that you bring. I think that is a really good balance. Sometimes people think in order to make an impact, you got to be bold and you got to be loud, and you are just very humble and meek, but you are very graceful and reserved, like the queen that you are. But just to know your story, coming from a past, a toxic relationship, a narcissistic relationship. Oftentimes bearing the weight of that does not result in the person that you are. And so we want to give women an insight on that and how you balance that out. So let's look at that story and talk about that.
A part of my chameleon persona is not looking like what I've been through. And that's a good reason why I use fashion as a vehicle, and I'm just a vessel. Yeah. So although we can beautify all of this and we can be fabulous, we do have a story behind us, and I'm not ashamed of that story. And it's taken me a long time to get to this point. I was in a narcissistic relationship for 13 years. This was with my children's father, and I don't fault him necessarily. I don't have animosity towards him. I have learned to release that because it doesn't serve me any good. It doesn't serve me any purpose.
Listen, we make no apologies for our story, our truths.
Right, you know? And our stories don't necessarily define us, but they do help to shape us and grow us. That's what I have learned from that process. And for the longest time, I never knew exactly what a narcissist looked like or what a narcissist really was. We always get wrapped up in someone being narcissistic. They're just really in love with themselves, and who is me, and that kind of thing.
But it's around as a casual term.
Yeah, it's a casual term, and it's the farthest thing from that. And I actually have a background in psychology. My master's is in psychology. I actually started on my doctorate at some point, and just kind of got off track with it, and I plan to resume that. But it wasn't until we hit this critical point where he lashed out at me in such a way when I went to pick up my kids in 2018. Just during our normal exchange of getting the kids. And he lashed out at me so badly in front of my children that I couldn't do anything. Like, I had to just keep my hands on the wheel. My daughter was sitting in the car and I'm waiting on the other kids to come out, and he just lashed out at me like I was a dog in the street. And I had to pause and just not react to him, but I just had to sit with that for a moment and say, where is all of that coming from? Where is all that energy forwarding from? And why is it directed at me? This is someone who is badly broken and hurt to disrespect the mother of your children in front of the children. And instead of reacting, because I said, if I react, this is going to involve the police, this is going to involve the news possibly. I've got to figure out how to get out of the situation. And at that point, I knew that it was a dangerous situation, and I had to get the kids out and myself as quickly as possible. Once I did that, then I had to reflect and go back to all of the behaviors that I had endured while I was with him in the relationship. And I got home, and I'm giving the short part of this story. I got home, I was in Atlanta picking them up. I'm living in Beaufort and traveling back home. I got home and I'm looking on Instagram, and I saw this page that said narcissistic survival or narcissistic therapy, something to that effect. And I'm starting to look at all of the information on this page, because this page just comes out of nowhere on my Instagram page. And as I'm looking at all of the information, someone who constantly deflects the ownership of their issues, someone who constantly tries to make you appear differently in other people's eyes, totally giving a different perspective in a story other than what's actually going on. Someone who refuses to take accountability, someone who wants to put themselves in the better light no matter what the situation is, and tries to berate and belittle and make you appear to be a certain way. And I just evaluated all of the things that had gone on the entire time we were together. And I said, this is him. This is him, because I had to identify who exactly he was beyond being my children's father or someone I was actually married to and had been with. And I had to put a label on this. And once I did that, I was able to deal with it a whole lot better and find and get to a place of healing, because I was actually able to identify what and who he was. And even the role I played within it, being an enabler. Being an enabler.
You saying some heavy words. You hitting it right on the head with what we need to hear.
Being an enabler. Not doing my own research. When you find out someone's been married multiple times, we have to ask questions. Talk to that mother, talk to his mom, talk to his sister, talk to the ex-wives. What happened here? Because there's a common denominator, and that common denominator is you.
That's right. That's right.
It is. And what happens is, because I was young, I'm 21 years old, getting in a relationship with a male that's 10 years older. I don't know myself. I haven't lived enough to figure out my worth and my value.
There you go.
I'm just thinking this is what I want, what I need, and woe is me, they're treating me nice and all these wonderful things. We've had a child or two, and then we got the third one. Oh, I've got to stay with you forever. And then all the red flags are popping up, and you got to figure out, how the hell do I get out of this situation and run with my life?
You said something so prevalent that many of us need to hear. And one of the things you did recognize early on, you said when he first lashed out at you, you realized this is someone that's very broken here. You realize it's not me, it's him. And oftentimes we as women, we all of those things you said, well, he's the father of my children, he is the man that I'm married to. We take these, I won't call them excuses, but we put them in a basket, we lump them together, and we weigh them, and we feel like because so much more is weighed here, that I can't really look at my own well-being and health here, but I have to go with what's heavier here. And that's just not so. That's just not true. And I think that was a wealth of wisdom within you to even recognize that immediately, that I'm not the problem here. This is the individual.
And it was interesting because that was like the high point of when that happened. There were so many countless experiences that I ignored, being almost stranded on the side of the road, or being told the grass is not green on the other side, where are you going to go?
And that's
just
what
allowing things
narcissists do, and that's a form of psychological abuse.
Yes.
Manipulation and control to tell you that, what are you going to do? Where are you going to go? Who's going to take care? You got 3 kids. You got all of these negative things, while deflecting on you, when in reality, it's that fear and that control within him trying to keep you there.
Yep. And it was in 2013 that I had an epiphany, like the light bulb went off. I had had enough of the lights going out in the house and having to figure it all out. I was over the figuring out everything and having to be the one to fix it. I was done. I had mentally checked out. I had physically checked out. Sexually checked out. I was done. I don't want no more parts of your brokenness, because I'm trying to heal. I'm trying to be on the path to healing. And God spoke to me. God said, if you continue to stay in this relationship another moment, in 5 years, you will never realize your potential. You will never manifest your heart's desires. You will never know who you can become if you stay in this relationship any longer. And that was my cue.
To exit left.
To exit stage left. Don't try to figure it out. Just get out. Call my mama and them. And they came with the U-Haul and picked me up. And there was some tears shed and all that. You got to go through that. I
imagine, because there's still some sort of attachment there. You have children, and we'll talk about that when we come back from the commercial break, but you have children. So there was really no true severing, because you still have to interact, I imagine. But you valued yourself enough and your children to say, I'm going to check out. And so powerfully, you listened to the voice of God.
I listened.
Telling you, the scripture says your obedience is better than sacrifice. You were willing to be obedient to get to where God said you needed to be, versus sacrificing, but I've invested this time and all of those things.
I've got to stay here for the kids, because that was at that point, that was the biggest thing I was holding on to. And I realized that's not enough. I think I was listening to Dr. Laura, and she was a big proponent of staying with the person for 18 years at least while you're, and I said, that's not enough.
No.
That's not my value system. I got to be my own lifesaver. I got to put on the life jacket.
I love it. Ladies, that's not the value system. I love that. We have to take control of our own value system and our own morals and our own future and determine what's healthiest. And I think that can be so debilitating. Honestly, if you would have stayed, I think it would have been more debilitating for your children to put in 18 years versus going, I need to protect them and myself now and leave.
Because you don't give them an opportunity to see what a healthy relationship should be, what it could be. It would have been different if we were actually working towards some level of health. But it was just toxic, and I had to get out.
And the key word is working. There's a healthy compromise, and it takes work. And we're going to take a commercial break, and when we come back, we're going to talk about the work that you've done. Sit tight. We're going to take a commercial break. We'll be right back.
Bringing out the fight, bring on all the lightning, 'cause
Hello. My name is Donellia Chives. I am the owner and creatress of Ngome Lifestyle. We are a African diaspora apparel and accessories company. You can find me at www.ngome, lifestyle, lifestyle.com, and find all of your African diaspora goodness, as I refer to as Afropolitan style. I am also the creatress and founder of the G Factor, which is an energy wealth building and creative lifestyle firm that I just recently started, where I work with lifestyle-based entrepreneurs and those who are wanting to increase and enhance their inner wealth, because that is the real bag.
Bringing out the fight, bring on all the lightning, 'cause
Hey, welcome back. I am joined with Donellia Chives, and we are listening to her wonderful story as far as the power and the wisdom. I have to continue just to go back to listen to the wisdom that you had in the story, because many of us, we endure thinking that we have to stay in something. And it is just wisdom to know when you are not the component that is causing things, and that you don't have to be the individual to stay through the other individual
Right.
healing. We want them to heal, absolutely. But a lot of times we as women, as nurturers, you know, we're natural born nurturers.
Yep.
God gifted us with that and we want to care. And it's amazing that you got to the point that you realize I need to care for myself. So
Yeah.
picking up from the story, you left, you got
I
out of
left.
this. Mom, dad showed up with the U-Haul, packed up and moved to Beverly, you know,
Beaufort, South Cackalack,
Beaufort.
by the
And,
water,
yeah,
beautiful Beaufort by the Bay.
That's
Yes.
right. And so life began anew. And what happened?
Life began anew. I'm by the water. I'm by hundreds of islands. I can flow in between, literally coast to, you know, just island to island,
Yeah.
going over a bridge to go to another, and just being around water and being around my family
Yeah.
was so pivotal and so empowering and impactful that I was able to just set my own course, just let it set sail
Yeah.
towards my own healing.
Yeah.
And it's still a process day to day. But I truly am grateful that I made that decision, that I had that discernment, that I listened to the voice of God within, and I moved on it. I didn't dilly-dally or
Yeah.
question myself. I went ahead and moved and got myself together.
Yeah.
During that process, I have my 3 children with me. I had one child who was going through epilepsy since he was around 3 years old. During the time that I moved back home, about a year or 2 in, I discovered my second oldest child also had epilepsy, totally different type of epilepsy. And it was my youngest child that brought it to my awareness. And we were sitting on the bed one day and she says, "Mom, she's doing that thing again." And I'm like, "What thing are you talking about?" She said, "That jerking thing." And so I'm looking and I'm noticing that my daughter has like this little mild jerk that you would barely even notice, but it happens kind of multiple times in a row. And I'm like, that's not right. So I took her to a pediatrician, and just over the course of, you know, inquiry and you know, all that whole process, we found out that she has juvenile myoclonic epilepsy. This was affecting her so badly that she was having trouble walking. She was having tremors uncontrollably, because at that time she wasn't on medication. And when she got on medication, it was like trial and error, and nothing was really working because her body just wasn't tolerating the different medications. And it got to the point where, you know, she's missing a lot of days out of school. I'm having to take FMLA from my job. And it was just a very stressful time. Yeah. At that time, I think my son had decided to go live with his father, so he wasn't in the picture. And he had been in remission with his epilepsy. He hadn't had it for a while, so he's with Dad. I'm thinking he's okay.
Right.
So fast forward, as I'm with all 3 children at this point, both of their epilepsy had just hit a critical point, to the point where my son had suffered a permanent shoulder injury from injury during a seizure, permanent shoulder dislocation. He had to have a shoulder reconstruction surgery. Then my daughter's was so bad, she had to have help with walking, feeding herself. She was having tremors in her hands. It was very scary, because I'm like, I don't know what's going on with my kids, and it's happening at the same time with both of them.
It's 2 of your babies.
2 of them.
Yeah.
So my son's epilepsy, very dangerous. He has nocturnal epilepsy, which means he has it in the middle of the mornings while he's sleeping.
Wow.
So literally I'm up around the clock while he's sleeping, just checking in, making sure he's breathing. My daughter, my youngest one at that time, was sleeping nearby him to make sure she could alert us when he had him, to call EMS and, you know, do all that process. And then my other daughter was going through hers. So this was all happening simultaneously, and I'm still trying to work as a newly single mom now, taking care of my kids.
Taking care of the kids, yeah.
And they have to see specialists between Savannah and Charleston, and I'm constantly driving back and forth. At this time, I'm on FMLA, but I'm serving children with disabilities at my job, and I had to make a decision in February of 2019 that I can only serve one.
Yeah, the ones that God gave you.
I had to serve them, because I don't want to be a disservice to anybody
That's
else's
right.
children
That's
that are
right.
suffering with
That's right.
disabilities.
Yeah.
I can't do it. I can look like Superwoman, but I'm only human.
That's right.
I'm only human.
That's right.
So I made a decision to resign from my job, and it felt uncomfortable. I was going into unknown, uncharted territory, but I had already had a side hustle business. So I knew, I said, God, you will provide for me.
That's right.
This I know. So I had that comfort, and I let it go, because it was another one of those moments where I felt and I heard God speak to me. If you stay in this situation another moment, you're going to go crazy.
Yeah.
You're going to risk your own health. If you go to this job one more day, it ain't gonna work out for you, sis.
Wow.
And I listened.
And you listened.
Because I need this vessel to be on 100 so I can care for my babies.
That's right.
And that's what I did.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I let the job go.
I mean, just what I see, the theme of your life here, number one is just, I just keep obedience, number one, but just truly stepping out, just able to diagnose the situation really and make a decision on what your lifeline is going to be.
Yeah.
And in both situations, exiting that toxic, narcissistic relationship, exiting the job because you needed to be of more value and of more help to your children. And I just feel like the theme of this is just speaking to women, letting them know that that thing that you feel like you're stuck in, that thing that you feel like you can't do, if God is telling you, if there's a tug there, if your health is in jeopardy, if your life is in jeopardy, sis, you need to go ahead and leave.
You need
now,
to.
Don't think about it. Do not pass go. Don't collect them $200.
It's not worth it.
It's not worth it. It's not worth it. And on the other side of it, there is so much more value in it. Let's talk about that.
There's so much more
what
value.
What purpose has come from all of this?
The purpose that has come from this is my freedom, my time,
Say so.
my healing.
Your healing.
On my time, not I have to call the job and find out how much sick time I have. Because I was one of those people that every time I needed to do something for myself, oh, you have 1 hour of sick time left. What am I going to do with that?
1 hour.
Oh, a half day of vacation. What am I going to do with that? I need unrestricted time to heal. Because I've been through 13 years of that.
Yes.
I have gone through X amount of years dealing with my children on my own.
Yeah.
I have not had time to, and then things before those time periods. You know, this is just starting at this particular juncture of my life.
Yeah.
I have got to heal.
Yeah.
Because I have to be able to help and serve others. Because that's one of my passions is to serve.
Yes.
I have to serve through my story. I have to serve through my gifts and my talents. I have to serve, but I can't do it from an empty cup.
You cannot give it.
Empty
you cannot
well.
pour from
I
an
can't
empty
do
cup.
it.
That's right. What are some of those gifts? What are some of those talents?
My gifts, I know I inspire people.
Yes, you do.
I know people see me, and as you so beautifully described, they see that about me. How can I help them get to that place? I believe I can help people get to that place. Because it's about your inner wealth.
That's right.
What is within you that you need to tap into?
Yeah.
Because a lot of times your trials and your hardships help give birth to your greatness. They give birth to your purpose.
Your trials and your hardships help give birth to your greatness and your purpose.
Yes.
Absolutely.
And it forces you to honor and acknowledge your gifts so you can move on them because God says, what? Your gifts will make room for you.
Yes, they will.
And once I understood that, I was like, this got to get out the way,
Yeah,
that got
there
to
you
get out
go.
the way. I got to get out of my own way.
Yes.
Because I got gifts that I got to work.
Your gifts make room.
Because in my Father's house, there are many mansions.
Yes, and I want one of them.
And I want one of them. I just came from Biltmore Estates. I see what's possible.
Exactly, exactly.
So I had to make room for
Yeah.
myself, and I had to make room for my healing. I was able to heal my children, help facilitate their healing rather. God helped that process, and they had to own their own health and well-being as well.
Yeah.
So I think when we learn to take full ownership of our happiness and our health and our well-being, we can move so much more powerfully in life and in the world.
Yes, I agree.
And knowing what's good for us and the decisions we need to make for ourselves.
There's a lot of the putting self first. We talk about self-care. We throw the term self-care around. You know, it has, and it's so important. And everything that you're saying in there is wrapped up in self-care. And, you know, we've gotten into the social media age and things like that. And a lot of times things like that have become cliche, but we really have to understand the truth and the value of self-care. And what you are speaking of right now is exactly that. understanding value, understanding your worth, understanding that I don't have to stay in this situation. I don't have to put up with this. I am not responsible for anyone else's healing but my own. However, when I can begin to heal, I can begin to serve and help others to heal.
Yes, from a much better place.
A much better
you
place.
can still do it.
Yeah.
I don't know how you're going to do it,
Yeah.
but you stand in a much better place.
You are saying also, I can still guard my space.
Yes.
I can still guard that.
Yes, because we have to have boundaries. Because a lot of times, as you said, people get wrapped up in all of what they see, and then they don't really know how to respect your boundaries or your energy. They don't know how to deal with it.
Yeah.
You have to tell them.
You have to show them.
Exactly.
And boundaries is a good word, because that is something that I am learning myself, or have had to learn, that boundaries are exactly that. When you draw the line, when you set those boundaries, you are teaching people how to respect you and respect your time, and they don't know. And people will continue to push and step those until you set those boundaries.
And you may be called a lot of unkind words in that process, but guess what? That's okay.
That's okay.
Because as my grandmother said,
come over these boundaries.
Whether you're doing good or bad, they're still going to have something to say. So give them something to talk about.
Give them something to talk about. Well, Queen, it has been wonderful having you here. It has been truly amazing. Thank you for sharing on this platform and just gracing us with so much wisdom. That is just the word that I keep hearing for you, is just wisdom. You're just full of so much wisdom.
You forgot to ask me about the Maya Angelou story. Do we have time for that?
Yes, let's talk about the Maya Angelou story. I want to hear about the Maya Angelou story.
Yes, I'll share it as quickly as I can.
So share us.
Or do we need to go?
No, go ahead. Share the Maya Angelou story.
She's one of my sheroes, first of all. I live by two of her quotes, one of which, your crown has been bought and paid for, put it on your head and wear it. And my role in life is not just merely to survive, but to thrive, and to do so with some compassion, some passion,
and some fashion.
Yep, some humor and some style. Yes. I had the pleasure of meeting her while I was pregnant with my son. I had just finished reading Why the Caged Bird Sings. This was in 2000. My son's now 20 years old. I was working at Nordstrom's on the sales floor. I'm pregnant with my son, like 9 months pregnant. Needed a break, went into the weight room, took a little nap, get up from my nap, and I'm looking over in the women's department, and I see a woman being wheeled around, and I'm looking in my mind's eye, and I'm like, is that Maya Angelou? Is that really her? And it was really her. And I had just read her book, like literally just read the book. And so I'm like stalking, trying to figure out how I'm going to go talk to her. And there's my coworker is in the department with me, and I called her by her first name, which was Miss Barbara. And Miss Barbara was my elder, but that was the culture in our workplace, was that we called each other by our first names, which is not uncommon.
Right.
So I'm figuring out a way to talk to Dr. Angelou, and I finally get a chance to talk to her. And after I spoke with her, had a beautiful small conversation with her, she overhears me calling my colleague's name Miss Barbara.
By first name.
And why did I do that? While she was there, she said, "You call her by her first name?" And I said, "Yes, ma'am," swallowing all of my pride in my throat. She says, "You are not to call her by her first name. You call her by her last name. She earned that respect. That's what you call her." I had no choice but to own that.
That's right.
Because I know my good Southern manners. I was raised by my grandmother. And that was my experience with Dr. Maya Angelou.
That's beautiful.
I'll never forget it.
Well pleased to see the poised, mannered woman that you have become today, and I think that's an amazing story. I think that's something for you to hold on
always,
just forever, and to share. You got checked by Dr.
Maya Angelou. I got checked, and I couldn't do nothing but be checked and just say yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am. Oh, well, thank you, Donellia, for being here. Thank you for sharing that story.
Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining in on this episode of Inspired with Takia LaShawn. Until next time, we're out. Want more inspiration and encouragement? Join me next week, Thursday, 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, right here on Live, and hear more extraordinary women sharing their extraordinary stories. And be inspired with Takia LaShawn. This episode of Inspired with Takia LaShawn has been sponsored by The Brow Company, Beauty Bar, Makeup Studio, and Lash Spa, a Takia LaShawn salon. The Brow Company specializes in exceptional lash, brow, and makeup artistry, natural nail care, full body and Brazilian waxing, laser liposuction, teeth whitening, hair shampoo and blow dry styling, and more. The Brow Company has 2 locations in Bluffton, South Carolina, and on Ladies Island, and are open by appointment Monday through Saturday. Find out more and book your appointment today. Have a business, idea, nonprofit, organization, or event you'd like to talk about? Contact me today to find out more about my sponsor and affiliate partner program segments here on Inspired with Takia LaShawn.
It was around that same time that my mom was diagnosed with stage 4 glioblastoma multiforme, which is almost 100% fatal. I mean, it's just not something that most people survive. And without delving too deeply into the overwhelming pain that caused, because I may have not been a great person, but I loved my mama. I mean, she was my only soft place to fall. I was a new mother. My daughter was 2 years old. My marriage with her father was falling apart, and things were just incredibly difficult.
Yeah, I can save myself.